Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's RigER webinar. Today we will talk about oilfield invoicing. We will show you how you can invoice your clients in RigER from simple service invoice to batch drilling and multi-well billing. And as I said before, today we're going to discuss all different types of oilfield invoices. Our presenters today are Michael Maltsov, our CEO and President, and Gleb Kobets, the VP of Operations. They will talk about oilfield job invoicing process, show you 9 ways of oilfield invoicing, present some of the revenue reports, and share best practices. And let's get started. And I want to pass the microphone to Michael, who will start with the RigER story here. Hello, Michael.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our RigER webinar series, and let's talk a bit how we come to the point and where we at. We started our business 9 years ago. In 2012, with a very simple idea to bring new technologies to oil and gas. After several years, starting as a solution for the equipment rentals, on the oilfield equipment rentals, we come to the point when we right now consider our software as a oilfield management system and operational ERP. The invoicing is very important for any company, and fast invoicing will define how efficient you are. And here's we have one of our example of RigER implementation when invoicing improved through the RigER implementation with one of our client, we moved from 3-week invoicing, average invoicing, to 1-day invoicing. So the flowback oilfield service companies, around 150 employees. It was 4 years ago. They have 7 different operational divisions, more than 600 field tickets per month. Field tickets come to the office with 3 weeks delay. The accountant trying to massage data and put everything to the one system, lots of Excel spreadsheets, and it was very time consuming and not accurate. So after the RigER implementation, they start using digital and semi-digital field tickets. Semi-digital means that they have a digital ticket with paper copy. Some of the field techs prefer to have digital tickets, and the rule was that nobody will leave the yard without a digital ticket. That lead to the dramatically improving operations tracking, and dramatically improve the invoicing accuracy and speed. So oilfield invoicing is could be very, very complex. When we have a job, we can have different types of tickets. Could be field tickets, which we consider as services, rental tickets, which will start and stop the rentals. It could be rental breaks, which will have start and stop rental period. Sales tickets, repair cards, batch drilling. It could be different types of rental tickets. It could be a maintenance ticket. It could be field repairs. It could be in shop repairs. Batch drilling is very, very complex system when you set up the schedule for a particular time period. So everything should go to the one invoice or several invoices with accurate billing days, billing cycles. We have 5 different algorithms for invoice generation, and invoice requirements control and credit memos as well. So the oilfield invoicing is very complex, and we will go through all those steps in very, very detailed manner today, from very simple invoice as we have RSA, which is job in RigER, with field ticket and invoice, to most probably complex when we have all of those as the part of the invoice. And invoices as an integration point exist in the system, and we integrate it with most of the accounting systems. So let's move forward and see how the accountant can benefit from RigER. So first of all, it's a report and dashboard, different types of the reports, revenue, utilization, the history of the job, understanding the different parameters. So, and if necessary, we can integrate with Microsoft Power BI or any other analytic systems where the accountants and operations can analyze different aspects of the oilfield operations. So I'd like to pass mic to Gleb Kobits, VP of Operations, who will lead us for the step-by-step of oilfield invoicing.
Thank you very much, Michael. Thanks for this introduction. And let me talk a little bit about the general things about what we invoice in RigER, and the basics actually about the invoicing process. So first of all, I'm going to start with the invoice items or billable items. So what we consider as a billable items in the RigER software are rental units or rental equipment, services, and parts or supplies that you provide to your customers along with the equipment. So basically, these three parts are considered to be included in the invoices. And these parts can be a part of or components of the more complex units as the combo units, assemblies, packages. But all of these three will be built out of these actual billable or invoiced items. And we will talk precisely how different invoices can be generated to meet different purposes. In terms of the general workflow cycle or the standard rental job in the oil field, let me just touch this real quick and explain how the invoices come up in the RigER system. So basically, every single oilfield job starts with a quote to the customer where you provide general conditions and you build the rental agreement with the customer with prices and all the rental equipment or services that will be provided to the customer. Once it's approved, the job starts, and then operations team works on the tickets when they can generate multiple tickets. Sometimes it's dozens of tickets for the single job. So they process these tickets in the office or in the field as well. And then when the job is done and all the tickets are approved and finalized and sometimes even signed by the client, then the accountant can generate an invoice. So that's a very important thing to understand, that the responsibility of different employees in your company will match with their responsibility in the software. So in the ideal situation, you have to copy your physical processes in the software processes by assigning a particular roles to employees, and everybody will know that they need to work on a specific document, not to accommodate the whole process at one person's shoulders, but just to give everybody a clear understanding that that's his responsibility, and he needs to do this part of the whole job precisely, accurately, and timely in order to be the invoice calculated correctly as well by the accountant. In the oil field, we may have as Michael said, very different scenarios in terms of the invoicing the clients, and that can be sometimes very complex and can accommodate different kind of requirements. So RigER software has very sophisticated mechanisms of generating different types of invoices for different kind of scenarios, and it can cover almost all the possible scenarios that you may face with your customers in terms of invoicing different parts of the oilfield job. Now let's go to the topic of this webinar and talk about the 9 ways of how the oilfield job invoice can be generated and what it can have. So I'll start off with the very simple and the very basic type of invoice, which is the oilfield service invoice. This is why I'm telling this basic, because it's pretty simple to calculate, because the oilfield service invoice will have only services on it, obviously, and services are tracked by quantity, and definitely the service has price. So in the RigER software, you generate field tickets, which are responsible for the services tracking. And in these tickets, you just put the quantity of services that your field technicians provide to the customer. And since you have rental service agreement with prices and multiple field tickets generated under this rental service agreement with quantity of the services, so the final invoice will accommodate all this information, will pull the prices from the RSA and pull services names and quantity from tickets. And then invoice mechanism will calculate, basically multiply the quantity by prices, and will come up with total amount, including taxes, definitely. So this invoice is pretty simple. As you may see on that screenshot, that's an example of the service invoice in the RigER software. So we have a field tickets as a reference of the documents from which all these services are pulled. And we have prices, we have quantities, and everything is calculated here, including discounts if it's a case. And on the next slide, I'm going to show you that the services can also be a part of the delivery ticket when you deliver your equipment. It's a very common situation when you deliver the equipment, you also do the tracking services, delivery. Sometimes it's installation or setup services. Sometimes it may be some kind of ongoing service support for the equipment, like maintenance, maybe fixes, quick fixes, etc., that can be billable to customer or sometimes not billable. So delivery tickets can also have services. Again, it will be then calculated in the final invoice. So on this quick demo video, let's see how let's see this process in action and how the service invoice gets generated in the system. Let's take a look at our rental service agreement with the equipment, forklift and generator, with the quantities and rental per day prices. And also we have a services, delivery and pickup services for each equipment, with also quantities and prices included. And we have 2 delivery tickets. The first delivery ticket is for delivering of the equipment to the client's location, with a quantity and services included, like a delivery with quantity 1. And also we have a delivery ticket return upon the return of the equipment with the services of pick up the equipment. From the rental service agreement, we can generate a service invoice. We click on the service invoice and we choose the date of the invoice, click generate. And a newly generated service invoice will take all the services from the delivery tickets only, with the quantities, prices, and total amount, including taxes. All right, so we've covered the service invoice part. Now let's move to the a little bit more complex, which is the rental invoice. Because the difference between service and rental, that the rental definitely will have the rental part of the job and rental charges. So how we calculate the rental charges for the oilfield rental job, we take the delivery ticket start date, and once we have the delivery ticket end date, we can calculate the number of days that the equipment was on location and multiply the number of days by the daily rental charges. And we will get the total amount for the rental charges. We can also have services and consumables or spare parts along with the equipment added to the delivery tickets. That will be a part of the final invoice as well. So you may ask a question, so what if we don't have the delivery ticket end? So we haven't ended the job yet. So in this case, the end date on the invoice will be actually the invoice date. Or on the invoice side, you can select the end date and cut the period which you'd like to invoice. And now let's take a quick look at the demo video for the rental invoice.
Now let's take the same rental service agreement and let's assume that the customer has requested the invoice with the rental fee and service charges, both included. We have the same delivery tickets with equipment and services provided, and we go to RSA, click Rental Invoice, Generate, and we select the date of the invoice, click Generate. And newly generated invoice has both rental fees and service charges from the delivery tickets. And rental charges are calculated based on the dates from the delivery ticket, start and end date, and multiplied by the daily rental fee. So the rental invoice has both, again, rental fees and service fees calculated with taxes included.
All right, good. Let's move on. And the next type of the job in the oilfield that you can have is the general rental, as we call it. Why we call it the general rental? Because it comes from the construction industry when you deliver the equipment and it works for a period of time, but you charge the client with a set of days. Say the rental period in this case can be days, can be weekly or monthly. So for example, the equipment can stay at the location for 21 days, but you've agreed with the client that you will charge them only 15 days, for example. Or it can be a monthly rental period, but the billable period will be 3 weeks. So you provide some kind of discount for the long-lasting rental periods to the customers. And that's exactly what we have in RigER in terms of the general rental invoices, where you set up the rental periods, billable rental periods, and the system will calculate automatically what charges it should apply for a specific period of time. So, for example, on that screen, you see that there are 3 unit numbers that were at location for period of time, and the system calculated that we need to apply 4 weeks rental period in terms of the charges, and that's just one billable period. So, and we apply these rental charges to this period, so the invoice is calculated automatically. So you don't have to manually calculate how many days it was on location, how many days we need to include. So you do just the general setup, and then the system starts calculating this automatically. Another complexity that you may have in the oilfield invoices is the billing cycles. So the billing cycle is when you actually invoice your customers for a specific period of time, and regardless of how many days the equipment was at location for that period, the system again will see, okay, we cut a specific period, and then the system will calculate invoice or billable days for this rental period automatically. And throughout the course of the billing cycle, you may have several invoices for different jobs. So let me again show you how the billing cycle invoices are generated.
The billing cycle feature allows companies to generate invoices for a particular number of days. For each RSA, you can set a billing cycle, or you can set a default billing cycle for every new rental service agreement. In our case, we have 28 days billing cycle. The benefit of having 28 days billing cycle is that in a year period, the company can have 13 billing periods rather than 12 billing periods in a monthly billing cycles. Now let's assume that we have a job and we need to generate the first invoice for the billing cycle starting from April 1st. So I generate a new invoice, rental invoice, and I select the date of the invoice as April 30th. I click generate, and the rental invoice calculates automatically the billing cycle days, and it's 28 days, and I just post invoice. And if I want to generate a next invoice for the next billing cycle, I go to RSA, click on generate, rental invoice, and let's assume that my date will be May 30th. So the new invoice will automatically generate and calculates the next billing cycle date. It's from April 29 till May 26, so it's total 28 days, and it calculates the total amount with taxes included.
Yeah, right. So you see that these kind of automations just simplifies your job as an accountant. You don't have to remember to write it down in your notebook what the billing cycle days should be. So once you set it up in the system starts calculating this automatically. And once the job is done, for the next billing cycle, the next invoice will cut the date when actually the job has ended and the rental period has been finished. Now, let me show you another automation tool in RigER, which is the rental invoice generation. That's the next step in your invoicing process, because you may have a monthly and close periods when you generate all the invoices for the previous month, for example, right? And you may have multiple jobs running at the same time, but you need just to have a billing date. Say it will be March 5th, and you invoice the February period with all the invoices that should be generated for the customer, for different customers. Now, let's see in action how it's done.
To generate multiple invoices at a time, we go to Oilfield Rentals menu and we open Rental Invoice Generation tool. Now we have to generate a new document, and we select the date of this document first. Say it will be March 31st, and we select the invoice date. Again, it will be March 31st. We can either post invoices that will be generated, or if we uncheck this mark, we just generate invoices. We can check the correctness and accuracy of these invoices and then post them one by one, or we can post them right away after the generation. Now, when we're ready, we click on Generate. And all the invoices for March 31st are generated for all the RSAs that have the open billing period.
Okay, so now let's see that, for example, different rental jobs can already have invoices generated for the previous periods, definitely. But for the billing date that we set up, we need to generate, say, invoice for rental job 1, invoice for rental job 3, and rental job 5 at the bottom. So in this case, the system will generate only these invoices and will skip invoices for rental job 2 and 4 because the billing cycle falls to the next billing date. So 3 invoices will be generated, but these 2 yellow ones will be generated in the next period. So again, that automation allows you just to quickly generate hundreds of invoices for clients and send them over and keep these periods invoiced automatically throughout the course of the jobs. Next complexity that we've seen with many clients is the batch drilling. The batch drilling is the situation when you need to invoice the job for different wells for different periods. And these periods will follow one by one. So on that scheme, you may see that it's the same rental job with delivery ticket start, delivery ticket end, the services included, everything included in here. But we have a number of wells that we need to split the rental period or billing period between. And we built the list of wells for each job that should be rental charges allocated to. And inside of this table, you can generate invoice right away. So you just tell the system that please generate invoice from this date till this date. And once these dates are approved by the customer, you check mark the approved column, and then you click generate invoice button and invoice will be generated. So your job as an accountant, just go to this invoice, check all the details, and finalize the invoice. So it simplifies your job so much because everything can be done on one screen. You just need to set the start and end date for each well, and all the rental charges and services provided within this period will fall under a specific well invoice. In the batch drilling scenario, you sometimes may lose some days for the billing, or because the operator or the drilling company can provide you this information that we need to bill this well for this period of time. Sometimes you may miss some billing days, and the RigER system will tell you what days are missed, because we have two reports that are responsible for collecting this analysis and information. So the first report is a gap days analysis report, where you can build this report by client, locations, and RSAs or jobs. And for each client, you may see that, okay, we miss so many billing dates that invoices should be created for. Okay, and the next report is the missed rental days report. This report is built by rental units, and you can analyze for which days you have not invoiced these rental items, specific rental items. So this report helps a lot with collecting revenue and just to reconciling revenue with information that your operator or your vendor provides you with, or your supplier. Okay, let's move further. And the mechanism number 7, we call it job ticket invoicing. It's completely different situation, and that's very specific oilfield case, which works not for all the clients, but again, sometimes you may have this kind of scenario. Let me explain that real quick. So for a specific location, you may deliver equipment and provide services, but your customer can request the billing by specific job orders. Say they tell that we need to get the invoice for this equipment, for this quantity of services for a specific PO number, for example, and they then provide you with a job order number. So this mechanism allows you to invoice equipment multiple times in a one day. Because in the standard mechanism of invoice generation, you can invoice equipment just once per day, and then you need to invoice this the next day. But in this scenario, you can invoice the same equipment multiple times for the same client, because they may request it under different job order numbers and different PO numbers. So that's a complex invoice generation mechanism that allows you to allocate revenue between different POs and job order numbers, and at the same time, as I said, invoice multiple times the same piece of the equipment. And for these types of jobs, you will have rental ticket delivery and rental ticket demop, meaning that return of the equipment. But between them, you will have job ticket that will specify the equipment that should be invoiced. And for this job ticket, you will generate a specific invoice. But services will be collected from all these three documents, like rental tickets, both types, and job tickets. And definitely you can have one invoice for all the tickets, or each ticket will have its own invoice. And let me cover these two, the most complex scenarios for the generating invoices for the oilfield companies. The first one is a multi-well invoicing. The multi-well invoicing happens when you need to allocate equipment between different wells, or services between different wells. So again, you may remember that we had a batch drilling where we had wells, list of wells as well, but batch drilling works period by period, so day by day. You cannot invoice the same equipment for different wells at the same time. But with well allocation, you can invoice the same equipment between different wells for different period. So in the invoice, you set up, in the rental service agreement, you set up the list of wells. And then when you generate invoice, you tell the system that I need to allocate rental charges for the same equipment between different wells and different periods. And your invoice will be split wells, and you can print separate wells invoices. And the most complex and most sophisticated way of how you can generate invoices is the master and sub invoices. So that's an invoices where you allocate equipment charges between different wells in a specific proportion. We have allocation rules when you can set up different wells and set up the rule how much percentage of the rental charges will be allocated between different wells. It can be well by well on 100% allocation for each, or sometimes it can be split of the rental charges between different wells. So in the same day, you will split the revenue between different wells or allocate it one by one by 100%. It can be splitted by periods, or it can be sometimes splitted even by line. So you will tell that we need to allocate this line for different wells. And when you generate master invoice and set up all these allocation rules, the sub invoices for each well will be generated, and that's the sub invoice that you will send to your customer for payment. But at the same time, you will keep the history of how these invoices were generated and what kind of allocation rules were. Now I've covered my part, one of the most complex maybe to understand right away, but let's a little bit switch over and talk about the invoice statuses. What is that and how it's used in RigER?
Yeah, thank you, Gleb. As you see, the complexity of oilfield invoices can be a very, very dramatic, and we face it with most possible cases with our clients. And today, I'd like to continue with invoice statuses and show you how accountants use invoice statuses for the sorting invoices. So in each invoice, you can select any of the available statuses. So open, which is draft, signed for submit, signed but not submitted, submitted, printed, paid, emailed, mailed, out of signature, and canceled. So the accountant can sort the invoices by a particular status and understand the history of those status change, and understand how and in what kind of statuses this particular invoice right now situated. So we just need to open invoice list, click the button, and we will see what kind of status we have for this particular invoice. And we can sort sort all the invoices by a particular status. Say, for example, in this picture, we see emailed to the client and out of signature invoices, which we need to resolve as soon as possible. So again, one of the purpose of existing of RigER is to generate invoice faster and accurate. So and move and process the invoicing as fast as possible. And again, these statuses give us an ability to separate different invoices and understand what needs to be done for each of them.
Good. Thank you, Michael. And let's cover another area of responsibility of accountants, which are reports, actually. And that's not only accountants, but also the managers, the top managers of the company who needs to analyze the revenue or other indicators in the reports and build some kind of analysis. So let me cover just a few of the reports which are the most used by our users. But that's not the whole list, definitely, because we have dozens of invoices, dozens of reports that are available. Revenue by periods report shows you all your revenue by rental units, or by services, or by spare parts or consumables. So you can analyze by monthly periods, or sometimes you can change the layout and show the revenue by weeks or by even years, and change the structure of this report. So the groups will be changed also. So you can see by, for example, by client, location, and type of revenue, or by type of revenue, groups, and units. And all this information is pulled from the invoices. So as soon as you have invoices generated, you will see this kind of posted revenue in this report. The next report is pretty simple. It's revenue by clients. So again, revenue will be calculated by each client. And if you have distinctions of clients' divisions or line of businesses, then this report will split it also in these dimensions. Or you can have just a general one line for a customer and the whole revenue that is generated for a set period of time. Revenue top 10 shows you analytics of the rental units or goods, materials, or different locations. So basically, how much each of these dimensions generate revenue for a specific period of time, how much revenue engineers made or field technicians made. Itemized revenue report. This is one of the most detailed report because it shows you revenue by each individual revenue item, meaning equipment or even piece of equipment, serialized piece of equipment for a period of time. So again, it's just by invoice. It's taken from invoices, by customers, jobs, locations, etc. So all the details that we can extract from the invoice is placed in this report, and you can see the revenue by each individual unit number. Unbilled service report shows you what kind of services you have not billed yet to the customer. So it's just easy to pull up this report and see, okay, what we've missed from the invoicing standpoint, and you can quickly generate invoices based on that information. Estimated revenue report shows you how much revenue you can earn for a monthly period. So this is the monthly report, and we try to predict what kind of revenue you may have by the end of this month based on the 2 days information. So if the equipment is deployed to location and it's working, so we just make an assumption that this equipment will be working up to the end of the month, and we predict how much revenue it can generate for you. Equipment revenue report is a little bit another one because it takes revenue for the equipment that is provided along with the services. So if you provide mostly, so your business does mostly the services, but you also have equipment attached to these services, we can extract this information from the field tickets and show you how much revenue your equipment make. And unbilled revenue report is pretty similar to the unbilled service report, but this shows you the revenue that is not yet generated in the invoices for customers. Again, that's a great report to just wrap up all your revenue and generate missed rental days in the invoices. And sales tax report. This one has been approved just recently with the tax schedules. So all the rental invoices can be split by a tax schedule because each invoice may have different tax schedules. So inside of one invoice, you may have taxable items, not non-taxable items, and even if the item is taxable, it may be taxable to different counties and zip codes. So in this report, we'll show you how much revenue and sales tax amounts each invoice has. Okay, now let me pass the mic back to Michael and to talk about the best practices in invoicing the oilfield jobs and how we integrate RigER with accounting systems and what's actually available for you in terms of the digital signatures.
Sure. Thank you, Gleb. Yeah, as you see, the invoicing is very critical and important element of the entire oilfield operations. And I can give you an example with the earlier day of the RigER implementation. With one of our client, we start replicate the existing invoices and start entering those invoices to RigER. And with this is a real life example with one of our client. They enter the invoice number one, it was wrong rental days. The invoice number two was the calculation error because they tried to run invoices in Excel spreadsheets, and it was the invoice for approximately 10, 11 grand, and the cumulative error was 1,000 on the $1,000 on behalf of the client. So the company not earned $1,000 for very simple math calculations and the wrong rental days calculations as well. So it was obvious for us, and again, the best practice is to not use Excel spreadsheets for the invoicing. However, if we talk about the traditional accounting software and rental operations, the traditional accounting software could not work with the rental periods as well. Because, say, for example, the QuickBooks designed only for two columns. One is for prices, another for quantities. And here go, you have an invoice. But for rental invoice, you have to enter start date, end date, billable days. Actual day and billable days could be different columns as well. So another thing, we usually encourage and focus on our clients to split responsibilities between several departments. So the sales will be responsible for the pricing and price management and negotiation with the client and set up the proper price in the rental service agreement. So or quote before the job starting, because negotiating after the job always leads to the losing of the revenue. And operations always responsible for the quantities and equipment sale, services, consumables, and focus on this proper setup, the start and end date of the operations, and accounting. When they run invoices, they check the prices and check quantities and start and end date. So all those important days. But again, separate of duties give us a good opportunity to move forward with the proper invoices faster. Another thing, usually when we talk about accounting integration, what we do, we send those invoices to accounting systems to avoid double entry point. And for Sage 50 and QuickBooks, it's just a one-way integration. Because they are not SaaS systems, and usually they located on premise, and we're not able to take information from them, but we can send purchase invoices, sales invoices, rental invoices, and in some cases payroll information to the accounting systems. With more advanced, for example, Microsoft Dynamics Business Central or QuickBooks Online or NetSuite or Xero, we have two-way integrations where we can get information from accounting system and send information to the accounting system. So for example, we can synchronize the list of clients, we can synchronize locations, etc. So that kind of, again, the best practice is do the accounting integration, do the integration with the accounting systems. Another integration is the e-billing systems like OpenInvoice or Cortex, both right now owned by Enverus, and RigER has the integration with them. And again, the best practice is to synchronize those invoices and support documents, because one thing which we didn't touch today, it was attachments for the documents. So you can have invoice and all the documents which will prove that you invoiced that amount properly. So it could be tickets with digital signatures or without digital signatures and stamps, showing the actual acceptance from the field supervisor or the engineer on the side that it was a proper job and should be invoiced in that amount and that time. So e-billing integration again is a very good practice, which most of our clients use. And another thing which become more popular, it's digital signatures through DocuSign or PandaDoc. When RigER generate invoice and send to the digital signature, so the supervisors like engineers can digitally sign the ticket or put the digital stamp and send this back to RigER, which will be uploaded automatically, and you can find this signed invoice, approved invoice, or signed ticket, approved ticket as a attachment in RigER. So it's very convenient, and we will talk about digital signatures and digital stamps next week. We're preparing the new webinar showing you kind of a step-by-step how the digital signature works. And we're coming to the point when we are ready to answer your questions. Definitely, it should be a lot of them because the topic is very, very complex.
Yes, we actually do have already a few questions. Thank you for being so active. And the first question is, why some items do not have prices added in invoice?
It's very popular. Gleb, can you take it?
Yes, for sure. The reason is just simple because if you don't see prices for rental items or services on the invoice side, it means that you don't have prices set up in the rental service agreement, because the source of the prices for the invoice is the rental service agreement document. So once you miss the prices on the invoice, just go back to the rental service agreement, check the prices or set them up, and then regenerate invoice, and it will automatically take all the prices from RSA, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, it could be a situation when field technician added some services in the field, and those services not in the RSA. So it will require to reassign an approval from the management and potentially from the sales team to set up the prices and properly edit the or update the quote. So that is why we, in some cases, we have specific features which will add those items, those services or rental units to the initial rental service agreement, and the rental service agreement will take pricing information from the general price list or price agreement for the particular client.
Good, thank you. The next question is, are there restrictions on who can generate invoice in RigER?
Yes, so that's a great question, because yes, we do have the separate role for the to give an ability to generate invoices in RigER. So once we set up the database with you together, we define who will be responsible for what in the software, and we assign accountant receivable role to a specific person. So this person will be able to generate invoices and control the change of the status of invoices. We can enable or disable an ability to export invoices into QuickBooks system or to the Open Invoice. So yes, that's all manageable and can be precisely customized.
Yeah, for some clients, we have the extension not only the role but function, because you can have like 5 or 7 different people who can see the invoices, but the only one can generate or change the status of the invoices. So again, depends on how much control you require for the invoicing process, but usually it's a 2 or maybe 1 person in the company who can do that.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Is there automation for invoice generation in RigER?
Yeah, we have a lot of tweaks and lots of small and especially big documents, which will be rental invoice generator, which we mentioned today, and some small tweaks which will show how it can be faster invoicing. So we have that kind of ability. But again, in every particular situation, we need to understand what kind of requirements are.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Michael. Can revenue report be emailed automatically by schedule?
Yes, exactly. So for the most of the reports, we have a feature that enables the system to send these reports automatically to a specific people. So that's a general kind of setup, and then these people will receive these reports on scheduled time. So yeah, it's available.
Oh, good. I don't see any more questions right now. But anyway, you can always contact us, reach us by phone, email, website, social media, any means that you prefer, and ask any questions. You can see all the contact information right now on your screen, so just please do.
Good. Yeah. Thank you so much for today's webinar. And we are looking forward to see you next week when we will talk about digital signatures.
Thank you very much. See you later. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.